The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
This message is brought to you by Abercrombie Kids, where the activewear is made for every summer activity, so your mini-me can bring their personal best. Summer days are always an adventure, from day camp to rec leagues and pool days. Abercrombie Kids has the shorts, tees, and swim to keep them comfy and keep up with them. Get everything for the entire summer at Abercrombie Kids. Shop in-store, online, or in the app.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second LTE internet plan with smartphone plan savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to YA OK. I am Eric J. Brown, and I have a special guest here today. Why don't you say hello, whoever you are?
Hey, it's me, producer Matt. I am filling in for your normal co-host, Alyssa, today.
I don't think she's normal, but...
She's more normal than the two of us.
She is actually more normal than me. But it's normal anyway.
Eric, who do we have on the show today?
We have Jo Simmonds, and her book, Runaway With Me, is coming out it is out right now in the UK, but it is coming out in the US in October. And I read this. It is a great book. It's a queer thriller, and I am very excited for people to get to read it.
I'm excited to read it, and I'm excited for people to hear our episode where we talk about Aerosmith music videos. We talk about how maybe there aren't plotters or pantsers, but just one generic version of everybody. We get into some crazy, weird conversations over the next hour.
Yeah, and it's still chaotic, even without Alyssa.
Arguably more chaotic, because I don't know what I'm doing half the time.
Ugh, bullshit. All right, well, let's get into it.
5 long years, our lives like magnetic fields. You are my universe. You are my universe. And I'm just a planet.
Don't worry, I'm just as not a writer as she is, so this dynamic should be great.
Great. We just need one non-writer on here to ask the questions that writers forget that people who are just readers don't know.
Yeah.
Like the plotter or pantser thing. I didn't realize that was not a well-known thing before.
Nope.
Sir, I feel like we should start off by saying, hi, Jo. How are you?
Hi, I'm great.
It's so great to have you on here.
I'm so excited to be here.
I loved Runaway With Me. I mean, as you know. Why don't we start by telling us a little bit about what the book's about?
Sure. So it's a road trip romantic thriller, and it follows the story of two girls called Jessie and Brooke as they are running away from their home in Seattle, and they embark on this road trip adventure across the states. And as the story unfolds and as they get to know each other more and more, you start to find out exactly what they're running away from.
Yeah, and it's all one of the things that I know. When I got the email about your book, the comp was that it was like a queer Thelma and Louise. And so that got me into it immediately, because I'm like, oh, okay, so they're on the run from somebody. That's good. Yeah. And I was not disappointed at all. What was your inspiration for writing the book?
Yeah, so I don't think it's exactly a secret at this point, but I started off with this idea from... If I say the music video to Crazy by Aerosmith, which came out in 1993 and featured Alicia Silverstone and Liv Tyler as two Catholic schoolgirls who run away from school in this really cool open-top car. When I was a kid, me and my sister used to sit and watch music videos on MTV for like hours and hours and hours. And as a young person still working out my sexuality and my place in the world, that music video had a lasting impact on me. And all these years, I've kind of carried it with me about this idea of these two girls running away. And then I just kind of built the story away from that. I'm like, who are they? What are they running from? What's happening in their lives? And then can I take this amazing chemistry that was between Alicia Silverstone and Liv Tyler and turn it into a burgeoning romance? So yeah, that's kind of where the idea started. And then obviously it's a 5-minute long music video, right? But then everything builds out from there as I kept asking more and more questions of the characters. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. That was the conclusion of the Alicia Silverstone trilogy of Aerosmith videos. All of them great. Yeah.
There's 3. She's in 3 of them.
She was in Crying, Amazing, and then Crazy was the end of the trilogy.
I just Googled the video because I have not seen it in years. It's probably since the 90s I have not seen it. But I do remember liking it. And I think there was something in my head back then where I was just like, oh, they have chemistry. Interesting.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was like, this should be the two of them falling in love this whole thing. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's also, I get that video and the Crying video confused constantly because I'm always like, yeah, Crazy's the video that ends with her bungee jumping off of the bridge and giving the guy the finger. And it's like, no,
it isn't?
Yeah.
No, that's Crying. That's how Crying ends.
Oh.
Crazy is the one where they get the farm boy to strip and then they drive off and leave him with a tractor and no clothes.
Okay. But it makes sense for there to be a bungee jumping scene in Crazy, I feel like. So.
I agree. That is way more crazy than Crying.
Are they interconnected, the story, or is it just she just happened to be in 3 of them?
I think it's just that she happened to be in all of them. I mean, I guess you could argue that in the way that someone built out Pixar theory, that maybe... Sure, they're all. It's the same girl. She's just.
I'm gonna watch all 3, and I'm gonna have a thesis.
Well, Amazing is she's part of a virtual reality headset that somebody's watching. 90s videos are crazy.
90s.
Yeah. Especially Aerosmith, man. Aerosmith hit 1990 and was like, all right, we're gonna make all the music videos now. How many videos can one album have? Well. Let's find out.
I mean, it worked because that was Aerosmith was around since the 70s, and then I feel like it got the 90s kids to listen to Aerosmith from the 70s. When
I've made an argument that any musician should at least pay a little bit of attention to Aerosmith's career because they are the only band that I can think of that was popular in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, and somehow felt of the time during all 4 of those separate decades. While also still sounding like Aerosmith the whole time. They just were able to make the tiniest tweaks to their sound and image to fit into the 90s the way that they fit into the 70s. It's fascinating to me. Yes.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that. I don't think about Aerosmith often. I know their music and I'm fine with it. I don't go out and try and find it. But I did just Google the Crazy video just so I could watch it again. And now I'm going to watch Crying and whatever the other one.
But yeah, think about it like this, Eric. In the 70s, Aerosmith was arguably one of the biggest bands in the world to our parents' generation. And by the mid 90s, they are one of the biggest bands for our generation. It's wild that they were able to somehow pull that off. They were one of the first bands that me and my parents could agree to listen to in the car because it was it's Aerosmith. They're great.
Stayed relevant for so long.
They had their own roller coaster in Disney World,
which is about to become a Muppets roller coaster. And that to me, that is an upgrade. Yeah, it's becoming the Electric Mayhem roller coaster instead of the Aerosmith roller coaster.
Oh, that's incredible. I'll go on that. I never went on the Aerosmith one.
I maintain that Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem is the greatest name for anything that has ever been invented, ever. Like, I will never top that ever in my career. Just Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem. It's peak. It's peak.
It's perfect because the Dr. Teeth portion of it seems to have no real importance to the Electric Mayhem portion of it. They're great. I actually, a long time ago, someone hit me up and asked me if I wanted to be on a live stream. And he's like, we've got some pretty cool, like, people that are going to be on it. We're going to be talking about the Jim Henson documentary that came out on Disney Plus last year. And then I come to find out that the person who's on this live stream with me is the guy who's been doing Dr. Teeth for the last, like, 25 years. And I was like,
did you cry?
Oh my God. He's from our area, Eric. He grew up in Paoli. Like, it's wild. But he was the one who, if you remember when this happened a couple years ago, he's the one that pushed for Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem to start making music festival appearances where, like, you'd be at Coachella and Dr. Teeth would play like a 10-minute set of covers in between a band. And that was like his brainchild. Oh yeah. You can look it up. They covered Edward Sharpe Home. You know, that's on like Home, Let Me Come Home. Yeah. That with a bunch of Muppets singing it on a stage and a crowd singing along. Heartbreaking. It's beautiful. The world is better if Muppets are doing
videos
something
to watch after this.
We'll make a playlist for listeners.
Yeah. This also, Runaway With Me, I'm glad that we're talking about music because Runaway With Me is my favorite Carly Rae Jepsen song too. Was it the original title or was it something else? And then you kind of came up with that during the editing process or when you sold it?
Sure. So the original title was always Runaway.
Mm-hmm.
So they went from Runaway to Runaway With Me. And I wasn't familiar with the Carly Rae Jepsen song, but I do know there's a musical theatre song called Runaway With Me. And one of my favourite musical theatre performers, Aaron Tveit, does a version of it, which I love. So I felt like that was a nice, relevant connection there. But yeah.
What show is it from?
I don't know whether it's actually from a show. It's from a couple of musical theatre writers that kind of wrote this song. And I don't know whether it's actually ever appeared in one of their full productions. But yeah, also on YouTube.
It's another one I'll have to look up. And you are also what we are calling our Runaway With Me double feature because Brian Selznick was just on here and his first YA is called Runaway With Me. And I love that, like, the gays have pretty much locked down the Runaway With Me as a title for books because it's like we have the Achillean boys and now we've got the Sapphic girls. And I think there shouldn't be any. We can have like a bisexual one, but we're not allowed to have any straight people having a Runaway With Me title. So
no, it's ours. We've claimed it.
We've locked it down, especially during Pride Month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which started this week, not ended this week, as opposed to the text message that I sent. Eric,
on day one.
On day one, I fumbled. I made a typo. Typo.
Matt, you can't just subtract 29 days from a month.
To talk about the two different Runaway With Me's, it's also interesting because they both can mean very different things, and I think they do in those books. You know what I mean? Like in the one example, it's, you know, kind of one of those romantic, the summer's ending and I don't want you to leave and end this summer romance type of Runaway With Me. But this one, it's quite literally, it could almost be called Be On The Run With Me. Like,
if we wanted to have an awkward title, it would be On The Run With Me.
Yeah.
No, but I do love that there's that duality of that meaning, especially in this particular book. Like it has that double-sided concept, which is really cool. I didn't know that it was a thriller and a Thelma Louise theme thing. So I am all in on this book now. So I can't wait. Maybe again, this could be, Eric, another book that I read on my 9-hour flight to LA since someone didn't get a book published this year.
You're gonna have to pay maybe a tariff on it.
Oh, it's not here yet.
It's coming out in the UK on June 5th. but it will not be out in America, I think, until October.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Why
I'm
such
sure
a
we can
long
get you a
delay?
copy. Like we can.
No,
we can-
it's not worth.
Oh.
Listen, my friend deals with shipping and handling stuff right now. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to you to pay all that money to send it to me.
Yeah.
I know. I feel like I'm not going to get a lot of books from the UK anymore.
Oh, that's
Just
sad.
because of that.
I don't know.
It's
I mean,
sad.
taco. we got that taco thing happening right now.
Oh yeah, I've been so like disconnected. I don't even know what that is.
Oh,
What is
it stands
taco?
for
I know
Trump
that
always chickens out because he keeps backtracking on the tariffs that he threatens over and over again. So people just keep calling him taco, and he's getting increasingly frustrated with it. So
I saw they did a skywriting over Mar-a-Lago.
Perfect. Yeah.
And that's the only thing I saw. And then I was like, I only give myself a little bit of time to actually be on social
That's a
media
good
now,
call.
like per day. And I was kind of at the end of it, and I was like, "Oh, I should look that up." And then I kind of forgot to do it. It's genuinely, I'm not nearly as depressed as I would have been, I feel like.
Yeah. But we do need to talk. So I am curious, Joe, what got you into wanting to write in the first place? Like, what was, I guess, here's how I'm going to word this question, because this is how I would ask a filmmaker this question. So I'll revise it very slightly. Do you recall a specific book or moment where you said, this is what while reading it, you said, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life?
No.
Okay.
So it was a terrible answer.
Good question. Good answer. All right.
So I think I've read so much all the time. Since I was a kid, I read loads and loads and loads. When I did my undergraduate degree, I did my degree in English literature. But it just never really occurred to me that it was something that people did as a career, even though I consumed so many books. I never really put anything together that there were writers that were writing the books. They just kind of appeared in my library, and it was great. So yeah, it just never really occurred to me that it should be something that I should think of doing as a career. I started writing when I was a teenager. I was writing all the way through my 20s in kind of hobby groups and sharing my writing online. And yeah, it was only in the deep dark days of lockdown in 2020 when I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and do a master's degree because why not? And found out the university where I'd done my undergraduate actually offered this course called Writing for Young People, which is one of the most well-respected creative writing courses targeted at children at YA in the country. So I just happened to be that this course existed only 30 miles from my house, and managed to get accepted onto that master's degree, and that's where this book started its life.
That's so cool. It's similar to me as a kid. It's like I was reading all the time, but I didn't think that there were actual people. It's like it's hard to actually explain it, but it's like, oh, I didn't realize that there were actual people behind this. I thought it was kind of like how there's toys made, and it's just like somebody somewhere is in a factory that prints this, and that's how it comes out. Yeah, and it just has always been there. And
it's like brand names, isn't it? It's a Hasbro book. You don't, it's a Mattel book. You don't know that there are actual people. I think the first person that I really recognized was Jacqueline Wilson. I'm not sure whether she's got as big a presence in the States, but she kind of dominated like that middle grade space in the UK, and she's written like well over 100 books. She's incredibly prolific. But I remember thinking, oh, I like Jacqueline Wilson. Her books were great. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think once I've realized that, I think this is another thing that like a lot of writers do, where they kind of realize when they're young that they want to be a writer. Like every once in a while you'll have one that's like, oh, I kind of stumbled into it as an adult. And to those people, I'm just like, oh, how dare you? How could you not want to do this your whole entire life? But I always wanted to be a writer, but when I was a kid and I realized that there were authors and they could write books, I was like, oh, I want to do that. But in my head, I was like, that's an impossible thing to do, though. That's like becoming a celebrity. Like you can't nobody just walks down the street and gets discovered and becomes like an Oscar-winning actor overnight kind of thing. And that's how I thought writing was. But we all know now it's just a very long long process.
Yeah.
What was your path to publishing? So you went to the MA program, the master's
Yep.
program, and then how long did it take you to get published after that?
Upsettingly quick, I would say, for compared to
That's
most
a good
people.
thing, I think.
Yeah, it was great. I was working with a mentor during the process of writing the first draft of the book. And she kept putting pressure on me. She was like, I need you to finish this draft. I need you to finish it. And I just assumed that everybody was getting the same kind of pressure from their mentors. And they weren't. Lucy was just really bullying me into completing the first draft of this book. So I handed in like my final project of my master's in September, and I finished the book in the September as well. Started writing in the May. So I wrote the whole book over the summer. And then it's a really cool part of the MA program actually is that we put together an anthology with samples of everyone's work in our graduating class. So everybody had a sample of their project in this anthology. And then we all went to London and threw a big party and invited every single literary agent in the UK and also outside of the UK. And we had all of these agents come to this party that we threw. And the same week of my graduation, I got an offer of representation from my agent. So I finished the book in the September and then I was agented by the February.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Which was really quick. And then I had the offer of publication from Penguin Random House in, I could say October time, although that was a cool story as well. You know Amina Parchment Youssef, right, Eric?
Yeah, Amina actually was working at Hachette when they bought All That's Left in the World. So Amina was one of the first editors of my career as well. So
yeah. Well, she read it, I think, before she moved job role, so she couldn't do anything with it. So she read it early in the spring, and then, as legend has it, the first week in her new role at Penguin, she called my agent and said, "Is this book still available?" And it was. So then she bought it. It was the first book that she bought in her new role at Penguin. So that was quite cool.
That's so cool. That's
Very
exciting.
cool.
Yeah.
See,
But yeah, Amina is just like the loveliest person. I love her.
Yeah. When I got the email, I was like, first of all, I just like that she reached out to me. But as soon as I read like what it was about, I was like, oh yeah, I absolutely want to read this. And I was excited because I was kind of working on my own thriller at the time, and I wanted to kind of get an idea of just where like new YA thrillers were going to. And I just immediately was like, yes, I'll read it. Let's do it. So.
Well, like I had a total fangirl moment because I'm almost certain that I was pitching Runaway as kind of like the sapphic version of All That's Left in the World. And I remember reading that book several years ago.
The finished copy in the UK, yours has a map too, doesn't it? Because I think
it does.
So I got an ARC, and I think it was the cover was the map that is actually in it.
Yeah.
Looks great.
So it was very cool.
And I love that it kind of hints at what's coming on each of their stops, but it doesn't spoil it still. Because I think when I was like halfway through, I realized that the little icons were matching on the cover, and I was like, oh, so everything else. I looked ahead and I was like, oh, so I think that this is going to happen here and this is going to happen here. And then even when you're trying to guess, it's like, oh no, I was wrong. Okay, never mind. So what made you choose to do YA specifically? Was it just like reading the Jacqueline Wilson books like that made you want to write for kids, or was there something else?
No, I mean, I read all of like the blockbuster YAs of like the 2010s, the Twilight's, the Hunger Games. And I think I kind of started to seek out other YA books because I really liked what was happening in the genre. And then I noticed possibly, I think, Love, Simon, or Simon versus Homo Sapiens Agenda. When that came out, I was like, oh, there's a lot more queer representation in YA than you see in a lot of adult books. And I always felt like that sapphic books were quite difficult to find in mainstream adult publishing. But there was just a huge amount of representation in YA, and I was like, okay, that's really cool. That's like, I love that that's there, that that's accessible. And then I think the other thing is that when you walk into a bookshop, you have a YA section. You don't have a YA romance, a YA thriller, a YA crime, a YA sci-fi. You just have a YA section. So you can kind of do more fun things with blending genres than you can in adult fiction, where, you know, your publisher is going to want to know, okay, am I putting this on the romance shelf or am I putting it on the thriller shelf? Where is it going to go? Who am I going to market it to? Whereas in YA, I can write a romantic thriller and they're like, cool, it's going to go on the YA shelf. You don't have to kind of justify in the same way, you know, whether or not it's going to get one type of cover or another type of cover, or it's going to be marketed to one audience or another audience. It's just kind of thrown into this melting pot that we call YA, and people figure it out from there. And I love that about this genre. I love that, you know, you don't have to categorize things in quite such the same way.
Yeah, I never thought about that. And that's probably why I don't get a lot of pushback whenever I kind of pitch a new idea that's a different genre. My publisher isn't like, oh, well, we don't really know how to break you out in that genre. I don't think they've ever really said that. And, or if they have, they say it behind closed doors and never in my face. But like, I think they're more open to having different genre, like an author write in different genres and just kind of see where they're going to land, because they're like, okay, well, here's the track record that you've had so far. Let's see if we can keep this audience and then expose it to a new audience as well. I never thought about it. And
I love what Alexandra Bracken is one of my favorite YA authors, and she seems to do that. Every new like book or series that she comes out with seems to be slightly different again, right? That she kind of shifts from one thing to the next, and her audience just seems to follow her with it, which is amazing.
Yeah,
I do think that as someone who bounces between reading YA books and just general romance books, I do think that like when I do move to the romance books, I almost feel bored because it is just definitively that genre with no like interesting twists and turns. Whereas, you know, with Eric's books, it's like a coming of age romance book, a post-apocalyptic romance book, a romance thriller. Like similar to what Eric said, I never really thought about it through that lens, but maybe that's why halfway through most romance novels I read, I start to feel fatigue from it that I don't feel from YA, because it's, you know, you want all of the books to be a little predictable. There's something, it's why we like watching Hallmark movies and slasher films, right? We want things to like fit the formula, but when you're mixing in other genres, you kind of at least are like, all right, I want to see how these two worlds clash. The fact that every time I read one of Eric's books, at any moment, either lead character could die and it wouldn't feel out of the realm of possibility, versus when you're reading a romance book, you're like, well, both these characters are definitely going to live to the end of this book and live happily ever after, unless it's like The Notebook or a Nicholas Sparks thing that you're reading. Like, I think you've just helped me figure out why my preference keeps falling towards YA no matter what book I read. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Are there any adult authors who can kind of blend or jump between genres without,
besides like maybe Stephen
audience?
King? Like,
I don't know, because like all of his are still pretty much like, he has the horror, but then he usually has its thriller and then like a mystery. Those are all pretty much, you can
dabbles fantasy every once in a while too.
Like, this one, this is God Killer by Hannah Kaner, which is like a fantasy romance.
Ooh,
loved these.
I love the convenience also of that being literally shoulders length away from you.
This is my mini library. I'm like, I'm going to sit at my library.
You're like, I like to imagine that about an hour ago, you're like, all right, what books might I need to reach to, and let's get them on the appropriate shelf.
Ta-da!
Oh my God.
Oh, the better cover.
Cover that is.
Did you have different covers as well for?
I have that too.
Yeah, I'm jealous of you with the UK cover. I do not like the American covers of your books.
Hey, I like the American cover.
It's fine, but I like the colorfulness. I like the color options on the UK book.
They're pinkies.
Yeah.
Their pinkies just barely touching. And then I also asked for that still in this one too, except baby, they're pulling away.
Oh no.
I said that was probably going to be my brand. It's just pinkies barely touching. I actually said to them when they sent me like a first draft of the. By the way, listeners, we're talking about the covers for All That's Left in the
just
World.
Google
I always forget
them.
that like we're not. This is not a visual medium.
Yeah,
so
Google them for visual aids if need be, or grab your copy off your bookshelf.
The first draft of it, like they were just kind of like sitting there and they weren't touching at all. They were just next to each other. And I was like, okay, but like make their hands kind of touching. And I went like lesbian period drama level angst of pinkies touching, like where this has been the only thing that they have had for years. And that's as far as they've gotten, is just touching pinkies. And thankfully they took my suggestion. On both covers.
Very emotionally yearning. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. Just the yearning.
Yeah.
Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
Get into your body's vitals with the Vitals app on Apple Watch.
I wanna get into my body and let my skin do the talking. I wanna feel like I'm myself again.
The Vitals app tracks key overnight metrics so you can spot changes in your health before you feel them. The Vitals app on Apple Watch. iPhone XS or later required. The Vitals app is for wellness purposes only and not for medical use.
Not all EVs are created equal. The Ioniq 9 sets a new standard. Hyundai's first all-electric EV with 3 rows. Space in an EV. Finally. Plus, with over 300 miles of range, ultra-fast charging capability, and tech infused with safety features, this isn't just space. It's freedom reimagined. More room, more possibilities. Learn more about the Ioniq 9 at HyundaiUSA.com. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
Are you troubled by trying to find a great movie podcast to listen to?
Do you experience a love for monster movies from the classic Universal era to the modern creature features?
Have you or your family ever watched episodes of Elvira, Monster Vision, or Svengoolie?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Open up your podcatcher and search for the professionals. The Monster Rally Podcast.
Our hilarious and asinine hosts have an ever-growing library of episodes for you to listen to 24 hours a day to serve all your monster movie needs.
We'll talk about it.
Well, you know what? We were just talking about the map. This is a road trip across the United States. You're obviously not from the United States. Why'd you want to make it take place in the United States?
was actually a conversation that we had very early on when I started drafting the book. And Lucy, who I mentioned earlier, who's my mentor, she was like, can this happen in the UK? And I'm like, yeah, but if we were going to do like the same journey from like the northwest to the southeast, from like Glasgow to London, you can drive that in 8 hours. There's very little space for dramatic tension in an 8-hour drive from one corner of the UK to the other. So that wasn't going to work. And then I would say most people here would just fly. You'd just jump on a £30 flight from Glasgow to London. There's no need to get in a car and do that. And we have, like, across Europe, people will mostly just jump on a flight. There's to travel anywhere across the continent. So we don't really have the same like long road trip culture, which I think there is more of in the US.
Definitely.
But I have friends who live in Seattle and I have friends who live in Orlando. And that was the thought of joining them up in a road trip seemed very exciting to me. And also as a British person, the idea of like these long road trips feels very romantic to me. So it felt like there's lots of opportunity to bring in tension and excitement and things going wrong. So yeah.
Yeah, I like road trip stuff. I feel like you said, it is hard to. You would have to do it in basically all of Europe. It would be like the southern tip of like Portugal up to, I guess, like Germany or Poland. But why would you want to go to Poland? No. It would just.
And you would just
Orlando
fly.
has a reason. Yeah, it's so much cheaper to fly too. That was in the US. If it is like an 8-hour drive, I'm sitting there doing the math in my head and I'm like, even with tolls and with gas, it's probably cheaper for me to drive 8 hours, even if I were to stay in a hotel overnight, than it is for me to buy a plane ticket for 2 people to fly down. I was going to a book tour or a book festival in Ohio, which Ohio is right next to Pennsylvania. And my flight got canceled probably 20 minutes before it was supposed to take off.
Oh, geez.
And so usually you'd cancel, but in my head I was like, you know what? I will drive because I really like this festival and I don't want to cancel on them the day before I'm supposed to be there. So I just drove, and it's 7.5 hours across Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is the most boring state to drive through, I think.
Yeah, you get on that turnpike and you're just stuck for 6 to 7 hours with nothing to look at.
So dull. No, except for Trump signs.
Yeah.
Because it was last July.
More than just Trump signs, sir. People building his name out of stones on hills for you to see as you drive by.
Yeah, it was actually, they parked a pickup truck, or not pickup truck, like
an 18-wheeler. Yeah. Nope. I know the one. I have to go to Pittsburgh twice a year and I see it every time.
Across it.
Yeah.
Whereas if I drive 7.5 hours in one direction, I can probably cross through like 4-5 countries. So, So
Pennsylvania is specifically deceivingly longer to drive through than I ever would have imagined as a kid. Like looking at a map, I'm like, oh, you could probably get through PA in 3 hours. No,
it's 8. Anytime my husband and I go to Europe, we always drive places. Like, I know it is cheaper, and the rail lines in Europe are way better than they are in the United States. But there's just something about driving through Europe, like finding tiny towns to like stop and get lunch in. It's just, that is, to me, is romantic. In America, I'm like, ugh, that's gross. Everything sucks. And then in order to even get anywhere, you have to go through all of these bigots. No, I don't like it. Let's just stick with Europe. Europe is the romantic one. And it actually is romantic. The U.S. road trips are the ones that seem romantic, but then when you do them, they're like, ugh, I hate this.
Yeah, that was like, Eric, you read the book. There's not actually an awful lot of time in the car because there's only so much time you can spend in a car with these characters, and it's still interesting. So
I tried to write a YA road trip that was across the country as well. It has not been published. It probably won't be, but that was, I think, one of the biggest the issues that I had while writing it. It's like, okay, well, how do we get them out of the car? And did you, when you were trying to figure that out, it is easier to do it with a thriller. You did it well, but were there times where you're just kind of like sitting there looking at a blank page being like, how do I get you out of the car? Like, what am I going to do? How do I figure this out? And then how did you figure it out?
I think it's because they very early on in the story, they figure out the route that they're going to take. I think they actually say, okay, well, we're going to hit these cities in this order. And so I knew that I had like everything was getting to them to the next city. And that was the point of like, I need to get them to where my mind's gone blank, but I need to get them to this next city by this date because this is what's happening next. So there was very much a momentum there to kind of get them back in the car and get them to the next point on their journey. So,
this makes me think of a question that we ask every week, but when it comes to writing a book, would you identify yourself more as a plotter or as a pantser?
I am very much a pantser at heart. Yeah. I had no outline. Lucy asked me for an outline multiple times when I was writing Runaway, and I'm like, yeah, I'll get one to you. And then I finished the book and I was like, hey, do you want an outline? I know what happens now. Which is unhelpful. I've kind of been forced into outlines a little bit by the publishing process because the industry demands it of us in a way that just writing for fun doesn't. So I write very loose outlines with lots of scope for things to change.
Eric, who was our guest?
Stifling our creative freedom.
Eric, who was our guest who literally writes the whole book, uses that as the outline to send, and then trashes their manuscript and starts from scratch after they get notes?
Anna Gracia.
Yeah. Chaos.
She writes the entire book, then deletes it. Sends it to her trash bin, and then hits delete, double deletes it so it is no more, and then writes the outline based on that and sends it to her agent and publisher. I like just hearing her explain this, I started getting like sweaty. I started having like panic attacks.
I do not have that many hours in a day to be able to get away with doing that.
She's a mother of two. Like, she has a full-time job.
I also feel like she's like weirdly one of the most prolific people we've had on this podcast for still like an early published author. At the same time,
because
she had like 3 books in 1 year or something, right?
Because she had her YA debut, but then at the same time, MTV was starting a publishing house, and she got hired to do a book for their like.
It was an adult romance,
and then she was already under contract with a third one, and so I think this was like a year after her first book came out, she was having 2 more coming out. I was like,
and she was almost done her third, like the 4th one. It was like great. I was like, how is that even possible? It's like when you find out that a filmmaker made 2 movies in 1 year, and you're like, how? Like that just doesn't make sense.
I mean, I'm a fast writer. I can write fast, but I don't get them published quick.
Yeah.
The editing process for me takes forever.
Yeah. That's the challenge, right? You can write quickly, but then you have to make it good. And that takes a while.
Unless you're those people who like, oh, no, I just wrote the first draft and then they did a little editing here and there. And I'm like, good for you. You probably outlined like 40 pages worth of stuff. I feel like we also had somebody who said their outline was almost 50,000 words, like, which is a book.
Yeah.
Like they write an outline that is basically a book. But it's like including all of their backstory and everything. And I was just like, no.
See, the thing that I would question with that being completely not tied to this world at all would be like, would an editor want to read that long of an outline?
No.
Like, I feel like if you send me a 50-page outline, I'd be like, all right, you send this back written like a human being could read it in 10 minutes, please.
Just give me 1 page.
Yeah.
That was the one thing that got me to not do outlines was because like before you're published, if people want a synopsis, like an agent wants a synopsis, they want it to be 1 page or less. And I'm like, you can't tell a story in 1 page. And so I was sitting there still writing an outline in 1 page. And I'm like, that does not help me because I have so much room. If I'm just saying like, this happens, this happens, this happens, this is how it ends. That's how much you get in 1 page. And that's not the whole book. So I have all of this freedom to just go everywhere in all of these different tangents and then find a new editing or ending when I'm doing that. And then once I got an agent, I found out I can make a synopsis as long as I want to. That was just for like querying stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So now I start sending like 14-page little drafts of an outline and be like, here, please give me feedback and let me know what you think. So.
See, one of my friends is convinced that there's actually no such thing as plotters and pantsers, which I know is controversial, but there are people that write very long outlines, which we would call a first draft, and there are people that write shorter outlines, which we would call a synopsis. And the people that tend to write more detailed outlines tend to write more complete first drafts, and people that write very long outlines end up writing shorter first drafts because actually they've outlined everything in what we would call our pantser first draft is actually just a very long outline. And we're all actually doing the same thing, but in a slightly different way. Controversial.
I feel like this is blowing my mind.
I'm seeing that gif of the guy doing that in Eric right now.
I feel like that is true. So then are we all plotters?
We're all plantsers.
Plantsers, yeah. I mean, because I usually don't start a book until I have at least the characters and the ending, or like an idea of the ending. Like I want like and it doesn't even have to be like, oh, and this happens and that's the end of the plot. It's more like just a kind of like feeling I want from the ending, like what would make this ending satisfying for these characters that I've now created. It's like, how do I come up with a satisfying ending? And so that's usually how I'll fill in the blanks either as I'm writing or if I have to write a outline. But I get, oh boy, I don't like that. I feel like my personality has just changed.
Sorry.
You broke him.
Let's talk about the soundtrack for this book.
Yeah.
Because every chapter has a corresponding song to the cassettes that they're listening to in this during this road trip. How'd you pick the songs?
So one of the first things I wrote when I sat down with like the first chapter is I sat down and I wrote chapter 1, Born to Run, Bruce Springsteen. And that just felt like the right place to start for this story. I was like, Born to Run. And I didn't even know what I was doing with it at that point. That was just where I started with it. And then I kind of set up this mechanic for myself where all of the chapter albums had to be available on cassette tape, right? Because the Mustang only plays cassettes. So I couldn't have a Beyonce album that was released in 2021 because that's not available on cassette tape. So it had to be something that was from this particular period of time. And so that mechanic kind of helped set out what those songs were going to be. And I think from the beginning, I kind of had an idea of the albums that I wanted to incorporate. So like I knew Bat Out of Hell would come into it at some point. I knew that Bat Out of Hell would be a big part of this. I knew that Michael Jackson's Dangerous, that felt like it very much had a place in this story. And then Notorious B.I.G.'s Closing Time, Ready to Die, that was very much in there. And then Tom Waits' Closing Time. Like all of these are kind of some of my favorite albums. And I was like, I know that there's a place for you in it. And then these chapter titles kind of work somewhere between like almost a spoiler for what's going to happen next. You know, when you read Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die, it's like, oh, okay, there's something that's going to happen here by the time you read that. So they seem to fit really nicely. And actually, from the first draft, I think there's only maybe 1 or 2 albums that changed. Like they are all the albums that were that I had set out in the first place. So yeah,
that's very cool. Did you listen to each of them as you were writing or even editing the chapters?
Yeah.
Just to help
Editing
you
it
kind
came
of
in
get
quite a lot.
into the idea of it.
Yeah, and so there was a few songs as well. Like the really cool thing about having music attached to the writing or the editing process was I only needed to throw on a couple of songs and I'm like right back in that story.
Yeah.
Like I'm right where I need to be in the mood to write that. And like the book that I'm writing now doesn't have a soundtrack in the same way that this one does, but it does have 3 or 4 songs which I really heavily associate with it. I put on those songs and I'm like back in that story again. They're kind of a cheat code or a shortcut to get back into that world.
Yeah, sometimes I'll do that where if I'm writing a scene and if I'm stuck, I'll try and figure out, like, the way I write, I always kind of like play it as a movie in my head, like the way the scene is. And so I'm like, okay, well, if this was a movie, what song would be playing if it was like whatever kind of movie it would be? And if I'm stuck, I will put that song on repeat and just try to figure out as I'm writing. Because eventually, if it plays enough, it just kind of becomes background. And I think I'm like still paying attention to it, but like I'm focusing more on the writing.
Well,
that makes sense.
When I was trying to make it as a screenplay writer, that was my thing. I remember it was ever since Garden State came out, because I loved the Garden State soundtrack so much. And I had heard that basically Zach Braff, when he was writing the screenplay for that, just made a playlist of like, you know, if I had all the money in the world and I could put any song that I wanted in this movie, what would those songs be? And he would like basically build his dream soundtrack and just listen to that only when he was writing, so that he was in the mood that he wanted the scenes to be. Like so I would do that before any script. I would sit there and be like, all right, this movie, I want songs that sound like this. And I would build like a playlist of like 40 songs and I would just have it on shuffle while I'd sit there and type for a couple hours. I think that music I can't do anything without music on in the background. I can't edit a podcast without some music, even if it's like gently in the background. That is like my life fuel for creativity.
That's cool.
It's the just having some other kind of input somewhere, even if you're not paying attention to it. I feel like it helps focus. That might be an ADHD thing though.
100%.
Apparently, it is,
there are times where I have music on while I'm editing, and then I'll later look back at my like Spotify history, and I'm like, I have no recollection of half of these songs playing while I was working.
I can't listen to music while I'm reading though. If it has words, I cannot listen to while I'm like reading a book that I have not read before. If I'm reading my own book, I can have music on in the background because I know what the words say, but I can't like sit down to read. I can't like put a record on while I'm reading or anything, because then I will start listening to the lyrics and then not paying attention to the book that I'm reading.
That's where you need to get like Sigur Rós or Explosions in the Sky, those instrumental bands.
I could probably do that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with the
Sigur Rós was my college studying
instrumental
music.
stuff. Is that how it's pronounced?
I don't know.
I always just pronounced it Sugar Rose.
Sugar Rose, friend of Sugar Ray. No, I believe, I don't know who pronounced it to me like that, but I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Sigur Rós.
Okay. I mean, that sounds more.
But I also haven't landed on how to properly pronounce Sufjan Stevens yet. So, like, don't trust me on anything.
No, it's whatever. Sufjan. Isn't that it?
Whatever. I don't know. Sure. My name's Matt Kelly, Eric. I've never had to struggle with people struggling with the pronunciation of my name.
Mine was just spelling my name. That's it. Joe, are you allowed to say what you're working on next? You don't have to if you don't want to, if you're not allowed to, but I always like to.
2 things, because that's the way the world works at the moment. So the next book, which will hopefully be next summer, is set in New York, and it's another romantic thriller, but it's kind of more of a scavenger hunt vibe. We've got two girls and they're looking for something. And they've got like the people on their tail because other people are looking for the same things they're looking for. I need to work out a better pitch for that one, but it's early. It's early.
If it's not out till next summer, you have time.
Yeah. And then the other one is a heist novel, which is set in London.
I love heist stuff.
Yeah.
I was wanting to write a heist novel, but I don't think I'm smart enough to do it. Because it's like, that's something I think you have to outline the hell out of. Because it's like, they always have to have, like, they have to have that moment where everything has to be explained, and then there's things that start to go wrong, and it's like, oh, how are we going to still pull this off? And then, like, right at the last minute, it looks like they're going to fail, but there's, like, some kind of cool twist that the main character is hidden from everybody the whole time. That works out. I mean,
you can plot it or you can rewrite it multiple times, which is
that works too.
the scenario that I'm in right now.
I'll make the first draft. It'll be them all like just it all goes off without a hitch, and then my publisher will be like, "This is the most boring heist book ever. Like, it's about the banter. Leave me alone."
So we talked about the books that you might be making right now and working on, but what about in your free time? What have you been reading?
Free time. Is that like an American thing?
It's a time where they don't charge you.
Excuse me, I believe the Europeans have more free time than the Americans have free time. You have you have required minimum vacation days.
So what have I been reading recently? Where have we going? So I am completely in love with Grace Curtis at the moment. This is her book, Floating Hotel.
Love that cover.
She also wrote she wrote a book called Frontier as well, Frontier is like sci-fi, but it happens on Earth. Trust me, it's brilliant. So I love Grace Curtis. And I recently also got, I'm not going to be able to find it. I got an advanced copy of Cynthia Murphy's new book, which was absolutely brilliant. That's coming out in September. And then the other book, which I am recommending all the time at the moment, am I going to find it? Oh yeah, this is called The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland, and I am an absolute wuss when it comes to like horror and gore and stuff, but this book is just like, it's rage, it's pure female rage, and the entire novel is centered around this idea of these girls who have got this feminine redemption, and it's great. It's so good. And like normally I'm like, I don't touch horror, I don't touch gore, and then I'm like, read this book, it's brilliant. So these are some of the things that I've read recently.
I'm adding that one to my list.
And
I love horror. So.
It's there's moments in it where when you're reading like a horror novel and you've got to put it down, you're like, no, I can't look at that for a second. You have to give yourself a moment, you put it to one side. But yeah, it's great.
Thank you so much for coming on to talk about Runaway with Me. Again, it's going to come out in the UK on June 5th, and congratulations. I am so excited for people to read this. Still angry that the Americans have to wait until October, but
what the hell?
I think, Matt, it'll be worth it for you. I'm telling you.
Well, that'll be my birthday read instead.
I want to say 14th of October for
That's
the
my
US
birthday.
version.
That's perfect. Your book comes out and I turn 40.
Awesome. And thank you so much for having me. Like I said, I had a massive fangirl moment because I loved your book so much, Eric. So it's really exciting to be part of your podcast.
And we'll have you on when your next one comes out next summer, and then you'll get to meet Alyssa too.
Yeah.
Sounds amazing. I love it.
When she asked me how far we can take it, I tell her we can take it across the entire universe. You are my universe, not just a planet.
Well, Eric, I thought that was a delightful episode, if I do say so myself.
I think it was fabulous. I was trying to think of like a word that like British people use, but fabulous.
Posh?
I guess
I don't know.
Oh, it was posh. Nah, that makes it sound like hoity-toity. Do British people say hoity-toity?
Maybe. We should have asked Joe. We missed our chance. Next time. Eric, what have you been reading?
So listen, I was like nervous for a little bit because I really want to talk to Alyssa about the book I'm reading because I think she would like it. But then I realized we're probably going to do another recording sometime this week, or even if not this week, next week, and I'm not going to be finished. So I'm going to do it twice. I am reading a book called The Savage and Noble Death of Babs Dion. And it is about this grandmother in Maine who happens to be a drug lord. Ooh. And she basically controls everything that happens in the town of Waterville, Maine. And one day for the July weekend, her youngest daughter disappears. And 24 hours later, they find out she has been murdered. And this woman is about to burn this whole town down to find out who did it. And at the same time, some strange man ends up coming into town who happens to be working for a drug lord in Canada and wants to know why there's no sales going on for him in her town. And so she thinks it's him. He is there to kind of fuck shit up and go crazy. It is a wild ride. I'm like halfway through. It's so good.
Well, I'm excited for that. I just finished past guest James L. Sutter's book, Dark Hearts. And I really enjoyed it. It was a good little read. Highly recommend it. I also read, not a former guest of the show, but The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han, I think it is. Yeah. And that was really good too. I'm excited to read the sequel books to that in the coming weeks. But Eric, the other thing that we need to talk about, because I mentioned it briefly on this episode already, but once again, hey, you want to support the show somehow, go to geekscape.dasherly.com and you can get a YA OK mug.
Depending on when you're listening to this episode, there might even be more options.
Who knows?
There could be more t-shirts.
Sometimes we get creative and come up with a t-shirt idea. So stay tuned for that. And also let us know what you're reading at YA OK Podcast on Instagram. I am checking all the time to see if anyone's got little reviews that they want to send us. We will happily read them on the air. But Eric, I think we're going to take a little break here and we'll be back in 2 weeks with more YA-OK.
See you next time.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.